everybody. Welcome back to Fuhrmann Orchards. I'm Leanne Fuhrmann, and today we're going to talk to you a little bit about pollination. Can you hear the bees and see the bees going in and out of the hive here? Well, bees are very important to us as fruit growers and vegetable growers here in Southern Ohio, and for you also as somebody who likes to eat. Because without the bees, there are so many fruits and vegetables that we would not be able to eat because we have to have the bees in order to pollinate them. Now, does anybody know what kind of bee these are? These are honeybees, and this is a honeybee hive. The bees are going in and out very much a lot today because it's a nice, beautiful, sunny day. And if you can see behind them, we're actually in the apple orchard. And those are apple trees that are in flower, and it is in the middle of bloom season for our apples. So why are the bees going in and out? Do you know why? Well, the bees go to the apple flower and they collect the nectar or the juice of the flower. The juice of the flower is down in the bottom of the flower, the nectar, and they also collect the pollen. The pollen is the yellow fluffy stuff, which we'll show you in a second. And when they go from flower to flower on the trees, they actually get some of that pollen and put it into their body parts in order to bring it back to the hive along with the nectar. You might also hear a tractor in the background. Because it's such a nice, beautiful spring day here in the orchard, it's a wonderful day to get some work done out in the fields. And we'll show you the tractors later on another video. So the bees, they go to the apple trees and they bring it back and they come inside the beehive that we've collected and created for them from our beekeeper. And when they go in and out, they're depositing their nectar and pollen to do what? What are they doing with it? Well, they eat it, but they also use it to feed their babies or the larvae bees that are inside the hive. So let's walk over here to the apple trees and maybe we'll get lucky and see a bee busy doing his work. Follow me this way. Now this is an apple tree that we have in our orchard here that has been pruned or cut back so that there's more light that go inside the apple tree. A lot of people think of apple trees as this big, huge, bushy structure, but it's not. This is a nicely pruned tree and it has a lot of new growth and a lot of flowers. A fun fact about apple trees is we only need a very small bit of the flowers to actually be pollinated on the tree to have a full crop. And when there's more than too many that have pollinated and the apples are small, we actually have to take the extras off in order to have big apples. So if we're quiet and we look carefully, we might be able to see some bees. There they are, flying around. He just landed right there on that flower. Do you see the bee? Now what is he doing? He's sticking his mouth parts into the flower as he hums and buzzes around, and he has some friends, and a lot of times they'll have a special little dance where they'll tell their friends that, oh, I found some, come over to this tree here. And they're looking for viable pollen or pollen that's good for them to eat and a very good juicy nectar. Let's look a little closely to see if we can find one so we can get a nice up-close video of him. Now, as we're looking for the bees, if we didn't have the tractor, we could probably hear them buzzing. Now, some of these flowers have not quite opened all the way. So let's go ahead and look at the apple flowers while we're waiting for the bees. This is what an apple flower looks like when it's just starting to open. See how it's nice and pink and pretty and kind of a popcorn. It kind of pops open and it's just starting to show. If you look at this flower here, you can see the flower parts very nicely. Do you know what the white things are there that are kind of pinkish white? Those are the petals of the flower. And on apple flowers, there are 5 petals. Do you see them? 5 petals on that one flower. Now when the flowers open, there's actually 5 of them in one bud. As you count them, you can kind of see 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Oh, this one has an extra one. It has 6. But most of the time there's 5. If you look at this one here, this one has already lost all of its petals because it opened a few weeks ago. But there's 5 apple flowers that come out of that one bud and a few leaves. So the first one to open is usually the middle one. And then the ones along the sides will open. So if you look at this flower here, you can see this is the pollen. It's the nice yellow, fluffy, powdery stuff that's on the very top parts of the male parts of the flower. And inside the middle of there is the female parts called the stamen and the pistil. The male is the stamen, the female is the pistil in the middle. And when the bee comes, he has to bring pollen, or the yellow powdery stuff, from one flower on another totally different kind of apple tree over to the flowers over here to cross-pollinate them. Apples have to have the bees in order to do that, for without the bees we would have no apples, because the pollen from the trees 4 rows over have to come over to the tree over here. And the bees do that because the pollen gets stuck all over their bodies. Now, not only honeybees, but also bumblebees can pollinate the apple trees and the vegetables that we grow here at Fuhrmann Orchards. Here's a great picture of a bumblebee. Now, it's a little too early for bumblebees here in the orchard today, but as the summer progresses, we will have plenty of bumblebees out pollinating our cantaloupe and our watermelon and all of the flowers that we grow, as well as the zucchini and the other squashes and cucumbers, because without the bees we wouldn't be able to have any of those wonderful vegetables or fruits. Even pumpkins need bees in order to pollinate so that we can have pumpkins. Now, not only bees pollinate, but also butterflies or moths or even flies. Anything that goes from flower to flower that gets the pollen stuck on them can pollinate the apple flowers and the vegetable flowers. Now, look at this flower here. This is not an apple flower, is it? Apple flowers are white. What is this? It's much larger than the apple flower. Do you know what kind of flower that is? It's a flower that opens up in southern Ohio in the spring. That's what season we are in, the spring. This is a tulip. And if you look inside, you can see that even tulips have flower parts just like the apples. The big thing in the center of the tulip, that is the female parts of the flowers right here. And then these are the male parts. And if you look, it gets nice and yellow and fluffy, and this will grow through it and it pollinates itself. It doesn't need to have the bees to pollinate it, because as it grows, it will rub off some of the pollen onto the sticky part, and that pollinates the flower. Now, on the apples, we need this yellow powder to pollinate the very center from another tree. Let's find one that's not quite so far open. These are older flowers, and this is going to have pollen here, and it will pollinate the female part. So there's 5 petals on an apple flower, and then we'll take it apart. So if we take the petals off, the petals will fall, and we'll show the inside part of the flower. This is all the pollen on the outside, and if we pull those away, you should be able to see in the very middle a little baby apple that's starting to form. And if you look here, this is the part that will turn into the apple right here at the bottom. It will swell after it gets pollinated, and we'll know that it's going to turn into an apple. Now, if you look at an apple and look at the bottom of the apple, this part right here is actually this part of the flower, the bottom. If you look at it, as the apple grows on the tree, it grows upside down like this. And as it gets too big, it flips over like this. So when you eat the apple, this is what's left of the flower. It's the bottom part, or the sepals of the flower. And as this grows, this bottom part is going to swell, and that's going to turn into the apple. Now, what's in the inside of the apple? Does anybody know what's in the middle of the apples? You've all eaten apples before, and if you crunch through it, what's in the very center? Yes, the seeds. And if you cut the apples perfectly through the middle, it makes a what shape? A star. Do you see the seeds in there? These are the apple seeds. Now, the apple seeds are also what's happened when the apple gets pollinated by the bees. It also forms the seeds in the center, and that creates the apple, and that's a fruit. So anything with seeds in it is a fruit. So what are some other fruits that we grow that we don't think of? Anything with seeds in the middle. A watermelon, yeah, that's right. How about a watermelon or a cantaloupe? Even a cucumber, we call that a fruit because it has seeds in the middle. The tomatoes that we talked about earlier, those are also fruits. So you can thank the bees for so many fruits and vegetables that we have. For without the bees, we would not have them. Bees are our friends. So thanks for coming out to the orchard today at Fuhrmann Orchards and learning about pollination. And don't forget to continue to eat lots of locally grown fruits and vegetables. Bye-bye.